Hi folks, this is Karim Raouf from IT Visualizer channel. We will continue our lab, the Matrix Labs, the video number 23. We have been discussing in the previous video the following. We have been still working with the tool that is called DCDIAG tool, which is very important tool to troubleshoot and discover problems related to the domain controllers and the Active Directory. Very important tool. It runs about 21 tests to test and discover different problems. Okay, this 21 test will focus and give you very detailed reports concerning the health of most of the components of the Active Directory and the health of the domain controller. For example, one of these tests will check for the services on the domain controller. One of these tests will check for the event log on the domain controllers to seek or see any errors. So it's a very great tool. It gives you a vision about the health of the domain controller and the Active Directory. We stopped the last time at these two tests, NC sec disk and net logins. We have discussed in details these two tests and what they do exactly. We have stopped at net logins. We have discussed what does it do exactly. This test will check for a service on the domain controller or on the domain controllers named netlogin, which is a very important service. If it is stopped or it is not working, users will not be able to log into the domain, and they will not be able to have any group policies applied to them, or even Active Directory login scripts will not be applied to them if the net login service on the domain controllers is not working. So we have stopped the last time at this service. We need only to see how this will be done practically. So for example, I need to go to my primary domain controller and additional domain controller and see or run this test and see the result, what will be or what will be displayed in the command prompt window. So let's see. As we can see here, he's saying that the net login service on the domain controller is up and running. This is from the PDF of Mr. Low Van der Poel. The net login service is a crucial in authentication process. We have said this before, and responsible for other operations like updating and applying group policies. So this service is responsible for updating and apply group policies and also applying Active Directory login scripts. We have said that if this service is not running or this test fail, this will be due to a couple of things. Okay, network issues, replication errors, sysvol or net login share issues. We have seen this before, or we have said this before. So now we will go and try to run this test on my additional domain controller, but take note that my primary domain controller is not running, it is suspended. So this test will check the net login service on the additional domain controller. It will not check it on the primary domain controller. I think here DCDIAG, this command, if you need to run it on all of the domain controllers, then we should put a certain switch, but here we are running it on this domain controller. So one thing also, this test is not related to the domain controller or the primary domain controller. So for example, this test will be successful because it will check the net login service on the additional domain controller. Okay, so this test will pass, but if there is problems with users logging into the domain, this service should be not running on the primary domain controller. Okay, so this doesn't mean that if this test is successful on the additional, that means that users can log in normally. We all know that the PDC is the responsible for logging in users to the domain. So this test should be run on the primary domain controller. But what I'm doing here, I'm running this test to make sure or let you all know that if one of the domain controllers are down, this test can successfully you can see or you can get successful results. Okay, so it is not related to the other or it doesn't need the other domain controller to be up and running. So it only needs this domain controller to be up and running. For example, remember we have one test that was called knowns of role holders. We have run it from this one. These tests depend heavily on the server that is holding the Vismo roles. So if it is not running, it will fail. So this test, uh, uh, you should make sure it will fail, or it will fail because the other domain controller or the PDC or the primary domain controller is not running. So some tests, what I am trying to say, some tests in the DCDIAG tool require the two domain controllers to be running, so the test will be successful. Some of them doesn't need the two domain controllers to be up and running, and only one domain controller can be running, and the test will succeed. One of them, for example, is the net login test. As we will see now, this primary domain controller is suspended, so we will see that the test will succeed. As we see here, it is already applied to the additional domain controller. As you can see, here is the service. You can open the service console, and here is the service of netlogin. So sometimes you can restart this service if there is problems with users logging into the domain. So this is the netlogin netlogin service, very important service for as we see here, it maintains a secure channel between the computer and the domain controller for authenticating users. So this is the service responsible for authenticating the users and make a secure channel between the computers and the domain controller. There is a client service, so there is two services, one on the server or the domain controller and one on the client. These two are responsible for doing the process of securing channel, or they make a channel and secure it, and authentication will be done using these two services, the one on the domain controller, the net login service on the domain controller, and the net login service on the client computer. So this is very simple process. As you can see here also, the net login and sysvol, these are two folders, very critical folders. The net login service will access both of these folders to apply the group policies and update them. So the service responsible for applying group policies and updating them, it is the net login service. So for example, if some group policies are not applied, then the net login service have a problem. If some group policies are not updated, then the net login service is a problem. And again, the group policies are saved to the sysvol folder. As for the net login folder, it contains the Active Directory login scripts, or some scripts that can be applied to users when they are logging into the domain. Okay, so this also, the net login service is responsible for applying different Active Directory login scripts to the users. If the service is not running, then no group policies will be applied, no group policies will be updated, no login scripts will be applied. So this will disturb the environment of the user. Okay, no group policies will be applied, no scripts will be applied, so the user will not be able to work in an efficient way. So here we will go today to the third, or actually not know the number, a test called Objectsreplicated. So this is one test that will check for the machine account and directory system agent objects. Okay, so this test will run on a domain controller. It will check that the machine account of the domain controller exists or it is registered in the Active Directory, and the domain controller computer object, it is in the domain controllers OU in the Active Directory, and the permissions set on this OU and the permissions set on the computer object is will uh, will be set in an efficient way so that the domain controllers can replicate to each other. So for example, if the computer or the domain controller computer object you don't have or you didn't set the necessary permissions on it, sometimes the replication will not complete. We will see that in a moment. We will see what we mean here, or what is the objects replicated. So in simple terms, this test will check for the machine account of the domain controller that this test is running on, and something called directory system agent objects. These are some information related to the domain controller that should be replicated to the other domain controllers. Some data related to replication setting, replication partner. We will see that in a moment, and we will ask the AI tool what is the directory system agent objects. Okay, so this is the first two things: the machine account for the domain controller and the directory system object for the domain controller is replicated to the other domain controllers. And if you need to check for a certain object in the Active Directory, if you need to make sure it is replicated to the other domain controllers, then you can identify the object by using this parameter and adding this parameter for a detailed check or a detailed test to check for this object. For example, if you need to make sure that a user or Active Directory user account named Karim is replicated from DC1 to DC2, then you should identify the object, put it using this parameter, and we will add this parameter to run a detailed or a comprehensive test or report to check if this object is replicated to the other domain controllers or not. So this is a very, very good test to make sure if one object, a user or a computer, is replicated or not. So you don't need to run, or you do not need to see if the whole replication is done. I need only to check for one simple object if it is replicated or not. Okay, so let's see if we go to Microsoft website and see here the the description. He checks the machine account and directory system agent objects, okay, that have been replicated. They are two replicated. Two objects are validated by default, and they exist, and that they exist in each DC, and they are up to date on other domain or other DCs. So first of all, it will check for the machine account, and the directory service or directory system agents objects are replicated to all the domain controllers, and two additional objects that it will check that they are all replicated to other domain controllers. The NTDDS setting for this domain controller and the DC name for this domain controller. Sorry. So again, if I run this test on my primary domain controller, for example, if I run this object replicated test on my primary domain controller, then this test will check for the machine account for my primary domain controller and the directory system agent object for my primary domain controller is replicated to the other domain controllers. And this test will check if the NTDS setting for my primary domain controller is replicated to the other domain controllers, and the DC name of my primary domain controller is replicated to the other domain controllers. The NTDS setting contains a lot of useful data concerning the replication setting, the time of the replication, a lot of things. So this is very, very important test, because if it fail, then we will have a lot of replication issues. We will see that in a moment. We will ask the AI tools to explain further about this test. But if we go further and see what is the machine account, this is another test we have seen in previous videos. There is a test concerning this DCDIAG tool, something called machine account. As we can see here, here is the machine account. It will go, okay, this is the definition of the machine account. Machine account, it is the DC computer name exists in the AD, so the object replicated will make sure that the machine account is there, or the DC computer account exists in the AD, and it is within the domain controller's OU, and it has the correct user account control and the correct server reference attributes are set. Okay, the minimum service principal names are set. I think this is related to the services. If we can open are set, this is identical to check security error, as they use the same internal test. So I think this is service principal. I think this is related to the services provided by provided by the domain controller. He's saying that the user or the service principal name is a unique identifier of a service instant. Okay, so this is okay. It will check, or it's making sure that it have, or the domain controller have the minimal service account services that is critical for the domain controller to perform its functions. So as you can see here, the machine account test is very critical. So the objects replicated, it will check if the machine account is replicated to all of the domain controllers. As we have seen here, that the machine account contains a lot of useful information. It contains the computer account in the Active Directory, where it is in the Active Directory. It is within the OU, its location in the OU, it has the correct setting, and so on. So the machine account is very critical. It should be replicated to all of the domain controllers. Okay, so this is very critical. The machine account makes sure that the DC is registered in the Active Directory, and it is having the necessary permissions to perform its duties, and to be able to replicate to other domain controllers. Anyway, so this is the description. We will take this this description and try to give it to the AI. Just wait for a moment. So we'll copy that and then try to give it to ChatGPT and to explain this DCDIAG test named objects replicated. Okay, DCDIAG tests in layman terms, and then you can give it the description here. Go like that. So as we can see here, this is the explanation for this text. Let's read it, or let's let ChatGPT read it loudly.
Sure. Let me break it down in simpler terms. What is DCDIAG? DCDIAG is a tool used to diagnose the health of domain controllers in a network. Domain controllers are servers that manage security and permissions within a network. What is the Objects-Replicated test? The Objects-Replicated test checks if certain important objects are copied correctly across all domain controllers. Here's what it does step by step. 1. Machine account and DSA objects. The test focuses on two specific objects, the machine account and the directory system agent DSA objects. These objects are crucial for the domain controllers to communicate and function correctly. 2. Replication check. It verifies that these objects have been copied, replicated from one domain controller to all the others. In other words, it ensures that the information is the same across all domain controllers. 3. Default objects. By default, it checks two specific objects, cn equals ntds settings. This is an object related to the domain controller's settings. Cn equals dc name. This represents the name of the domain controller. 4. Customization. You can also specify additional objects to check by using certain parameters, /object_dn, dn, and /n. 5. Communication method. The test uses a method called RPC with DRS functions to perform these checks. RPC, remote procedure call, is a way for one computer to run code on another computer, and DRS, directory replication service, functions are specifically used for replicating directory information. Why is this important? Ensuring that objects are replicated correctly across all domain controllers is critical for the smooth operation of a network. If the information is out of sync, it could lead to security issues, access problems, or other network malfunctions. In summary, the Objects_Replicated test in DCDIAG makes sure that important pieces of information are consistently copied across all the domain controllers, ensuring they all have the same data and can function properly within the network.
So as we can see here, very, very simple explanation. If we try to get the same the same thing and ask a different AI tool to do the same, if we go and try to do that, so you can copy this and go to Rika, for example, and tell him to explain this one. So as we can see here, this is the explanation. He's saying, I think, the same of ChatGPT 4.0, but let's try to see if it's explained in a more simple way. Designed to ensure two critical types of objects in your Active Directory are properly replicated across all DCs. Machine account, these are created for each computer that joins the domain. This is correct. They are essential for the computer to authenticate and function. Correct. DSA, these objects represent each domain controller in the domain and contain information about the DC role and status within the directory. We will ask the AI tool now, we will ask about this, what is directory system agents or DSA objects, okay? Default object checked, he's saying that by default, the NTDS setting, this test check if it is replicated to other domain controllers, and NTDS, it is related to domain controllers Active Directory service configuration. So some setting related to the configuration of the domain controller is replicated to the other domain controllers. An object named DC name, which is the actual machine account of the domain controller itself. As for customization, so on. So we have seen this, how it works. It uses RPC and DRS to check the status of these objects. It compares the objects across different domain controllers to ensure the information is consistent and up to date everywhere. So anyway, I think the explanation is simple enough. Let's ask Perplexity, because Perplexity will give us or will search for this test. Let's ask it to explain, but here I will not give him the description. I'll let him search the internet and see the this test. So let's go there and tell him to get this one. So as we can see here, it has searched for 8 sources, as you can see here, One of them is the DCDIAG Microsoft Learn, which we are currently using. So if you go and see what is the answer, he is saying that the object replicated checks if the specific domain controller has replicated all the required objects from the other domain controllers in the domain. If it has replicated all the required objects from the other domain, it's the opposite, I think. He has replicated his objects to the other domain controllers. Check if the specified domain controller has replicated all of the required objects from the other domain controllers in the domain. I think the opposite. Here is our explanation of what the tests do in layman terms. In an Active Directory, each domain controller maintains a copy of the directory database. That's correct. To keep these databases synchronized, changes made on one domain controller needed to be replicated to the others. Correct. The object test verifies that the domain controller being tested has received all necessary updates from the other domain controllers. It checks if the domain controller has the latest versions of critical objects like user accounts, group membership, computer accounts, group policies, and other necessary data. If test passed, it means the domain controller successfully replicated all the required objects and is up to date. However, if the test failed, okay, we know all of this. Anyway, I think it's not that good. If we tell him to, okay, I think we can. This is not the answer I needed. I think it will be more detailed, but it didn't get what I need. So we can ask Claude, the last AI tool, and tell it to explain this test. So we'll go like this, copy, then put this one like this, okay, and then Control V. So we can see from here, okay, in a computer network with multiple domain controllers, it is essential that certain critical objects are replicated or copied across all DCs. This ensures that if one DC fails, the other has the necessary data to continue operating correctly. The object replicated test checks the two specific objects had been successfully replicated to all DCs in the network. Machine account. The object contains information about the computer's machines that is a part of the network domain. It is important for authentication and security. Directory system agent. This object represents the DC itself and contains information about its role and configuration in the network. Here the machine account for the DC, he didn't say that. Okay, these tests verify that the two objects exist on each DC and their data is up to date and consistent across all of the DCs. Okay, additionally, you can specify other important objects. So I think not much to add. Okay, not a good answer. So now this is the explanation. We need to give him a couple of questions. For example, what is the directory system agent object? So here it will give us an answer saying, okay, let's read it loudly.
The Directory System Agent DSA is a component of the Active Directory service in Windows operating systems. It plays a crucial role in managing and maintaining the directory services, which include user accounts, computer accounts, and various network resources. What is the Directory System Agent object? The Directory System Agent, DSA, object represents the DSA in the Active Directory. Here's what it does in simpler terms. 1. Core functionality. The DSA is responsible for handling all the directory service operations, such as authentication, directory searches, and updates to the directory data. 2. Replication management. One of the key roles of the DSA is to manage replication between domain controllers. This ensures that changes made to the directory on one main controller are propagated to all other domain controllers. 3. Directory data storage. The DSA is the interface between the Active Directory database and the various components that need to access or update the directory information. It ensures that the data is stored correctly and can be retrieved efficiently. 4. NTDS settings object. Within the context of the Objectsreplicated test, the CN=NTDS settings object is an instance of the DSA object. It contains configuration information about the domain controller, including replication settings and other critical data. In summary, the Directory System Agent DSA object is a vital component of the Active Directory service that manages and facilitates directory operations, including the replication of directory data across domain controllers. Ensuring that this object is correctly replicated across all domain controllers is essential for maintaining the consistency and reliability of the Active Directory environment.
Okay, as you can see here, there is a lot of roles this object do. For example, it is responsible for handling all directory service operations such as authentication, directory searches, and updates. This object is responsible for doing this. Replication management, okay, directory data storage, NTDS. So the NTDS setting is a part of the DSA object. So this is one answer. I need to do something here again for I need to go and ask perplexity in specific, because it will give us something about, or it will give us a specific answer. So we can go and see what is the directory system agent object. As we can see here, there is something, or we can see here is the description from Wikipedia. A directory system agent is a component of an X500 directory service that facilitates access to a directory segment often associated with a single organization unit. So this is something related to the Active Directory. Okay, it's very related to the Active Directory. This component, he's saying this is an agent, a component that is associated okay, component of a directory service. So the directory service here, it is related to the Active Directory. Directory service here is, it is referring to the Active Directory as a service or as a software. So it's a part of it. Okay, an agent is a component of the directory or the Active Directory software. Standardization developed under so and so. It was developed by International Organization for Standardization, so and so. So the directory system agent is a key component in the Active Directory that manages and provides access to the directory database. So this is a very critical component that will help the domain controllers to access the Active Directory database. Here are the key points about the DSA object. The DSA is a collection of services and processes that run on each domain controller in the Active Directory. It provides the interfaces for clients to access the directory data store. Clients connect to DSA using protocols like LDAP, so and so, so and so. The DSA manages the physical directory database store on a disk. It processes queries, so and so. It distribute in a distributed Active Directory environment. DSA communicates with each other to maintain consistency and replicate changes across the domain controller. Take care of this point. DSA communicates with each other to maintain consistent and replicate changes across the domain controller. So I think these objects replicate with each other, not the objects. We will see later that there is a component named DSA. So there is something called DSA object, and there is a component named DSA. Okay, so there is DSA and there is DSA objects. DSA will replicate the DSA objects. So this is very, very critical because the DSA itself, it is important, or it is the uh, core of the Active Directory. We will see in a moment what I'm talking about, but let's wait for a couple of minutes and I will show you all what I mean here. DSA is a part of the local security authority subsystem on Windows Server. It enables authentication, access control, and security policies to be enforced for that directory. In summary, the DSA, but here is not talking about the object, he's talking about the DSA itself. It is a core component that powers the directory services, so on. So, no, let me ask it uh, something here. I'm talking about define the DSA object, not the DSA itself. Okay, he's talking about the NTDS DSA is an object. Okay, we all know that the NTDS is a part of the DSA object. Okay, we know that. So and so, okay. Okay, he's not getting the answer that I need. But anyway, the DSA object is a very, very critical object, okay, that contains a lot of information concerning the domain controller, the replication setting, information about the domain controller. This object should be replicated to all of the domain controllers. This will be done using the DSA, okay, or the directory system agent. So the directory system agent will replicate the directory system agent objects to all of the domain controllers. We will wait and see a diagram. It will clarify all of this, but this answer is not correct. The only correct answer that I can see from this answer of ChatGPT, it is okay. Again, this is related to the DSA itself. It is not to the object. DSA object represent the DSA in the directory, in the Active Directory. Here, what does in simple terms? Okay. Anyway, let's try to see. Ask Claude. Sorry, ask Pilot. Again, this is talking about the DSA, not the DSA object. Okay. Anyway, so we will see the diagram later. I will show you all what this means exactly. So, but to know or to have an info, the directory system agent object, this is an object every domain controller have. It have information about the domain controller, some information, very important information about its location, its replication setting, and so on. So this should be replicated to all of the domain controllers. Who is responsible for doing that? The directory system agent. We will see a diagram that will talk about this one. So if I try to ask maybe Rika, I don't think Rika will give us a simple answer if we go there and ask it, because I'm trying all of the AI tools. I think this one could be a correct answer. Let's see here what it's talking about here. Represents of DC. The DSA object serves as a directory entry for the domain controller. It contains information about the DC itself, its operational status, configuration, setting, and so on. So, role in replication. The primary role DSA object in the replication process, active directory. Okay, it's important for the replication process. Of course, because it contains information about the C. If this information is not correct, the replication will not be done. Where each domain controller can both read from and write to the directory, the DSA object manages the replication topology, determining how and when replication occurs between different DCs. Yes, because the NTDS setting contains such information, I think. It tracks the chains when being made to directory, ensures the chains are propagated, okay? Replication metadata. DSA object stores metadata related to replication, including the last replication time, the replication schedule, and information about replication partners. This metadata is essential for coordinating the replication process. Okay, so again, data related to the replication. Directory service control protocol communication. DSA objects are involved in the communication that occurs between DCCs using the directory service control protocol. DSP is a set of protocols used for managing and maintaining the directory, including replication. DSA objects facilitate the exchange of directory data and replication status between DCs. Security and access control. DSA object also contains security information related to the DC, such as access control that determine who can access and modify the DC setting and replication information. This helps protect the integrity and security of the directory service. Let me check because I think this answer could be a correct one. Or because most of the AI tools are confusing between the directory system agent as a core component of the Active Directory and the directory system agent object. Okay, this is different. So let's copy it and ask again Copilot, verify if this answer is correct. And I'll try to search the internet as well to see what is the exact explanation for this or exact definition of the directory system agent. So he's repeating the answer again. Are there provide references? So he's not getting what I need here. I'm talking about okay, let me try to search the internet about what is directory system agent object, and let's see the answer. Here we go. We'll search the regular search. Okay, this is this is a service or the core. I need the agent object. Okay. Okay, so here it is not talking about. Okay, saying the directory is this the service that provides so and so. So it's still confusing between the directory system agent object and the directory system agent system or core component of the Active Directory. So I think we can search for this one. Okay, if it's not getting it, we can search here. I'm talking about, is not getting it. Let's see if there is any references concerning this one. Directory system agent glossary. Okay, this is again not the not the object itself. Then I will just take what Rika have said. This is an object related or contains useful information to have the replication process done seamlessly. So let's see. So we have then said, or what is the directory system object as one thing. What is the NTDS, or again, what is the NTDS setting? So as we can see here, the NTDS is very, very critical for the replication to be done successfully. It contains configuration about the domain controller application setting and other directory service related parameters. Okay, it is located in this location. Replication configuration. This object contains setting that control how replication occurs between domain controllers. Replication is a process, okay, by which changes made on one domain controller is copied to the other. Clear. Site and server information. NTDS setting includes information about the site that the domain controller is in, server, and the server it is associated with, the site and the server in the Active Directory. Site represents a physical location or a network segment, and each site can contain multiple domain controllers. Connection objects. This is the it holds information, okay, about connection objects which define the replication path as the nearest path to the nearest domain controller and schedules between domain controllers. These connections can be automatically created by the knowledge consistency checker, very, very important service, or manually configured by an administrator. So critical, very, very critical object to be replicated, okay? It contains the location of the, sorry, it contains the replication configuration, the domain controller site location and server information, connection object, some attributes, okay, specify various options for domain controller. So it's whether it is global catalog, so it says also if this server is a global catalog or not. Very, very important for some searching or LDAP searching or some searching for objects in the forest. Okay, this is very, very critical. Inter-site transportation information about the transport protocols used for replication. So NTDS will define if it will use RPC over IP or SMTP to replicate in database or Active Directory database. Schedule defines whether replication can occur, allowing administrator to control replication traffic during specific times. So why NTDS is important? You see, it's for replication. We see that NTDS is a part of the DSA object. Okay, so this is a critical thing. So now we can see that this is the definition of the objects replicated test. Let's try to take or see Mr. Low Bundle Paul description here is saying that this test specifically check if the Active Directory objects are being replicated. He's talking about users, computers, and groups. Replication actually is a crucial process that ensures changes made to the directory, like adding users, creating groups, so on. So if probable causes for failure for this test could be network issues, okay? So there is a problem, so it will check for some objects to be replicated between the domain controllers, okay? So this test could fail if it cannot reach the other domain controllers, probably the network as incorrect DNS setting, firewall blocking necessary traffic, or network latency. It can interfere with the replication and cause the test to fail. So for example, this test will make sure it needs to communicate with the other domain controllers to see if the objects are replicated or not. So if there is network issues like incorrect DNS or firewall, it will not be able to reach the other domain controllers and see if the replication is done or not. Okay, so this is one thing. Network issues, replication configuration errors. Errors in the configuration of replication between domain controllers as incorrect sites and services setting can lead to replication failure. So for example, if one of the domain controllers are not correctly uh, held in the correct site, so for example, if you have a couple of domain controllers in one site and you remove one of them and put it in another site, which is not the correct one, then this test will fail because he knows, okay, that the domain controller, it's in one site and it is moved incorrectly to another site. So this will make an error because it still feels the old one. So let's see, errors in the configuration of application between domain controllers, such as incorrect sites and services. So as I said, it can lead to replication failures. Let's see, or let me see something here. I'll try to see or take this and ask the AI. Domain control availability. If one of the domain controllers are down, the test will fail. Active Directory database corruption. If there is a corruption in the database, this test will not be able to verify if the replication is done or not. Insufficient permissions. If the necessary permissions for replication are not correctly set, it can prevent objects from being replicated. So if there is no necessary, or the domain controller doesn't have the necessary permissions to replicate to other domain controllers, this test will fail because the replication was not done from the beginning. So this test makes sure that replication is done. All of these reasons will make the test fail. Network issues, okay, not domain controllers are not. So it tries to make sure that the machine account and the DSA object is replicated to all of the domain controllers, okay? So if there is network issues, then maybe the replication of these two uh, objects, the machine account and the object or DSA object is not replicated. So this will make the test fail, and the replication was not done because maybe there is the network issues, okay, and the replication configuration errors. Other domain controllers are not available. Active Directory database corruption on other domain controllers. Insufficient permissions. The domain controller that is replicating to others or to the other domain controller doesn't have the sufficient permissions, so the replication will not be done. So this is also a couple of errors. Okay, we will see here that will appear in the event log if the test will fail. So we will see here that this event is logged when the Active Directory service could not update an object with the changes received from the directory service at another network address, okay, because the directory service is busy. So maybe the replication was not done because there is some heavy load on the domain controller, on the other domain controller. Let's get this this explanation and ask the AI tool to explain it. I think here we can go to this one. Okay, here you go. Then we'll copy it, then go there, explain this DCDIAG. Don't worry, we will try to get an example to explain all of these, a real world example. DCDIAG test called objects replicated using layman terms. So let's read it loudly.
Understanding the DCDIAG test objects replicated test. DCDIAG is a diagnostic tool from Microsoft that helps check the health of domain controllers in an Active Directory environment. One of the tests it can perform is called Objects Replicated. Let's break down what this test does in simpler terms. What does the Objects Replicated test do? The Objects Replicated test checks if the information in your Active Directory is being copied correctly between different domain controllers. This is crucial because Active Directory is like a central directory that stores information about users, computers, and other resources on your network. Why is replication important? When you make changes in Active Directory, like adding a new user or updating a security policy, these changes need to be updated or replicated across all domain controllers to ensure consistency. If this replication process fails, different domain controllers might have different information, leading to potential security and access issues. Common causes of replication failures. 1. Network issues. Problems with the network can disrupt replication. These issues might include incorrect DNS settings, firewalls blocking traffic, or network delays. 2. Replication configuration errors. Mistakes in how replication is set up, such as incorrect site settings, can cause failures. 3. Domain controller availability. If any domain controllers are down or unreachable, replication can occur. 4. Active Directory database corruption. Though rare, corruption in the Active Directory database can stop replication. 5. Insufficient permissions. If the necessary permissions for replication are not set correctly, objects won't be replicated. How to resolve replication issues. 1. Network settings. Ensure DNS settings are correct and firewalls are configured to allow necessary traffic. 2. Check configuration. Review the replication setup in Active Directory sites and services. 3. Domain controller health. Verify that all domain controllers are online and functioning properly. 4. Permissions. Make sure that replication permissions are correctly set. Related event IDs. Event ID 1084, logged when Active Directory is too busy to process replication. Event ID 1388 or 1988, logged when lingering objects are detected. Lingering objects are outdated information that should have been deleted. Event ID 1864, logged when replication hasn't occurred with a partner for a long time. Event ID 1311, logged when there are issues with the partitions in Active Directory. Event ID 1925, logged when establishing a replication link with another domain controller fails. Summary. The Objects Replicated test in DCDIAG is essential for ensuring that changes in Active Directory are correctly copied across all domain controllers. If this test fails, it indicates that there might be issues with the network, configuration, domain controller availability, database integrity, or permissions. Resolving these issues is crucial for maintaining a healthy and synchronized Active Directory environment.
So as you can see here, this is very, very important test. We can see here that also this explanation is simple. Now we have a clear vision about this test, but let's try to ask Rika if it can give us maybe a simple or more simple explanation. So let's go like this. Okay, let's go like that. Go there. Okay, copy. I think the same answer is as ChatGPT. So let me. I will give it or try to ask it to give me an example. But before that, let me show you something here. The way the replication is done. So this is one a very very important thing. This is the diagram that I was talking about. So for example, this is the Active Directory database on a domain controller. Okay, and this is another domain controller that wants to replicate a change in its database to this database on the other domain controller. What will happen? It will first try to see the protocol it will use to replicate the change. For example, maybe RPC or LDAP. Okay, so this is the first thing, to use the protocol. Okay, it can use the RPC, the SMTP over IP, or for example maybe LDAP. Okay, the first thing, it will go to the operating system, okay, of the other domain controller and talk to a file called ntdsa.dll. This is the first thing. It will talk to this DLL, okay, which will uh, give, or it will forward the, the request for replication to the directory system agent. This is the core of the Active Directory, or this is the software that is responsible for most of the operations of the Active Directory. This is the software. Okay, it will take the request for replicating the changes, and then it will give it to the database layer. Okay, I think this is responsible for communicating with the database. So I think the database layer will go and forward the request to the extendable storage engine. This is software that will talk to the database. So this is the database layer, or let's say this is like a transfer layer. Okay, it will transfer the request to the database software, which will then uh, replicate the change to the real database. So this is the way of the communication between the replication is done between the domain controllers. So take a good look on the directory system agent. Remember, we have something called directory system agent object. So this one is responsible for replicating the directory system agent object to the Active Directory database. This is very, very critical component. We need to differentiate between the directory system agent as a software and directory system agent object as an object that contains information necessary for the replication. Okay, so this is very critical thing, because most of the AI tools was confused. They try to, or they was confused about the directory system agent as a software and the directory system agent object. This is different. Okay, so we will get the AI tool to explain this diagram, and then we will try to uh, wrap all of this in an example. So let's take this uh, 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 screenshot and try to ask AI tool to explain it. So if you go there and ask to explain this diagram, content using layman's terms, so I think this is very very good thing to explain what how the replication process is done. Let's try to read it and see it.
Sure, let's break down the diagram into simpler terms. Overview. This diagram shows how the Active Directory AD system is structured and how different parts of the system interact with each other. Components. 1. Clients. These are the computers or devices that interact with the Active Directory. They can be LDAP, ADSI, Outlook clients, modern clients that use different protocols to communicate with AD. Replication with other directory servers ensures that changes made in one AD server are copied to others using protocols like RPC, SMTP over IP. Outlook clients, specifically mentioned clients like Microsoft Outlook. Legacy clients, older systems that still need to interact with AD. 2. Interfaces. These are different methods through which clients and other services interact with the Active Directory. LDAP, Lightweight Directory Access Protocol, a protocol used to access and manage directory information. REPL, replication, handles the replication of data between different AD servers. MAPI, Messaging Application Programming Interface, used primarily by email clients like Microsoft Outlook. SAM, Security Account Manager, manages user and group accounts. 3. ntdsa.dll. This is a critical file that acts as the backbone for the Active Directory services. It contains Directory System Agent, the main component that handles all directory service operations, including managing data and replication. Database Layer, the layer where the actual directory data is managed before being stored in the database. 4. Extensible Storage Engine, ESE, esent.dll. This is the underlying database engine where the Active Directory data is stored. It ensures that data is stored efficiently and can be retrieved quickly. 5. Active Directory Data Store. This is the physical database where all the AD information is kept. How it all works together. 1. Clients, like computers and applications, send requests to the Active Directory using various interfaces, LDAP, MAPI, etc. 2. These requests are processed by the ntdsa.dll, which contains the Directory System Agent, DSA. 3. The DSA handles the request, interacts with the database layer to retrieve or store the necessary data. 4. The actual data is stored and managed by the Extensible Storage Engine, ESE. 5. Replication ensures that any changes made to the data on one server are copied to all other AD servers, keeping everything in sync. Simplified example. Imagine you have a company with several offices, clients. Each office has a list of employees, directory data. When a new employee is hired, their information is added to the list in one office. The replication process makes sure that the new employee's information is copied to the lists in all other offices. The ntdsa.dll and ESE components ensure that this information is stored correctly and can be accessed quickly whenever needed.
So as we can see here, very simple explanation about the process of the replication or even the communication if there is no replication. For example, if you as a client, for example, here I am querying for a user, for example, in the Active Directory database, I can use the LDAP, okay, and not the replication. I can use the LDAP to query for a user in the Active Directory. Here I am an Outlook client. If I'm using Exchange, which is linked to the Active Directory, so I can use or query the Active Directory using the MAPI. Or if I'm using novel or older systems that wants to interact with the Active Directory database, I can use the SAM. Anyway, so this is the way different clients can communicate with the Active Directory database for different purposes. Some of them are Outlook, some of them are replication, some of them are password management. Anyway, so all of these are done in or using this structure. This is the structure of the communication between the clients and the Active Directory database. Okay, so this is one thing. Let's ask it a very simple question here. What is the difference? The difference. Or let's ask it a simple question. I am confused. What is the let me get it very straightforward. What is DSA? Okay, so here let me ask it. Okay, copy object and okay, like this, and then we can copy it and ask another AI tool. So here he is trying to give us an example. Let's read and see what is his answer.
Let's clarify the difference between the Directory System Agent, DSA, and the Directory System Agent, DSA object in simpler terms. Directory System Agent, DSA. What it is. The Directory System Agent, DSA, is a key component of the Active Directory service. It's essentially the software component that handles all the directory service operations. Role. Manages directory data. It handles tasks like adding, deleting, and updating information in the directory, such as user accounts, group memberships, and permissions. Oversees replication. Ensures that changes made to the directory on one domain controller are copied to other domain controllers. Facilitates communication. Interfaces with clients and other services through protocols like LDAP, REPL, MAPI, and SAM. Directory System Agent DSA object. What it is. The Directory System Agent DSA object is a specific item within the Active Directory's database. It represents the DSA component's settings and configuration for a particular domain controller. Role. Configuration storage. Contains configuration information about how the DSA component operates on a specific domain controller. Holds replication settings. Includes details like which other domain controllers it replicates with and the schedules for replication. Identified by NTDS settings, the DSA object is often referred to in the context of CN equals NTDS settings in the Active Directory hierarchy. Diagram clarification. Looking at the diagram, Directory System Agent DSA, it's shown as a layer within the ntdsa.dll box, represents the core Active Directory service handling operations and replication. NTDS settings DSA object. This is not explicitly labeled in the diagram, but would be a part of the configuration details managed by the DSA. Represents the specific settings and configuration data for the DSA on a particular domain controller. Simplified example. Think of the DSA as a chef in a restaurant. DSA, the chef. The chef is responsible for cooking meals, ensuring the kitchen runs smoothly, and managing orders, similar to how the DSA handles directory operations and replication. DSA object, the chef's recipe book. The recipe book contains all the instructions, settings, and methods that the chef follows to prepare meals. It defines how the chef operates, similar to how the DSA object contains the configuration settings for the DSA. In summary, the Directory System Agent, DSA, is the active component that performs all directory-related tasks, while the Directory System Agent, DSA object is the configuration item within Active Directory that holds the settings and operational details for the DSA.
So very, very simple and clear answer. One question, why we are trying to explain this diagram? Because the object replicated test, it will test for the replication, so we need to know the way the replication is done. So this is one answer. Let me say, or let me ask Copilot to give me also an answer if it will be the same as ChatGPT 4.0. So here is saying that in the context of AD, the SA object represents a domain controller within the directory. Each DC in AD forest has a corresponding DSA object. It contains important information about the DC itself, such as operational status, configuration setting, and the service it provides within the domain. It plays a critical in managing replication, maintaining data consistency, and ensuring the security of the directory services across the domain. Anyway, I think this answer also is a little bit more convenient. So let me go to the last question and ask it to explain the DCDIAG test named objects replicated using real world example in the context of Active Directory domain. For example, a domain named matrix dot internal with a PDC named DSM01225 and an ADC named DSM0225. Let's see what will be the answer. So let's see what is his answer. Now here it goes. Now it's an example, so and so explain. So let's see what will be his answer. Read it loudly.
Let's use your example of a domain named matrix.internal with a primary domain controller, PDC, named DSM0125, and an additional domain controller, ADC, named DSM0225, to explain the DCDIAG test, Objects Replicated test. Scenario. In this scenario, you have a network with two domain controllers, PDC, primary domain controller, DSM0125, 2, ADC, additional domain controller, DSM0225. These domain controllers are responsible for managing the Active Directory AD for your domain matrix.internal. A real-world example of the DCDIAG/test objects replicated test. What the test does. The DCDIAG test objects replicated command checks if certain important pieces of information in the Active Directory are being copied, replicated correctly between the domain controllers DSM01225 and DSM0225. Example situation. Imagine you hire a new employee named Alice. You add Alice's user account to the Active Directory on the PDC, DSM01225. For the AD system to work correctly, Alice's information needs to be replicated to the ADC, DSM0225, so that both controllers have the same data. This ensures that if DSM01225 goes down, DSM0225 can still provide all the necessary directory services. Running the test. An administrator runs the DCDIAG's test objects replicated command to check if the replication is working properly. Here's how it works in simple terms. 1. Check default objects. The test will first check that the default critical objects, such as CN equals NTDS settings for both DSM01225 and DSM0225, are correctly replicated. 2. Custom objects. If needed, the administrator can specify additional objects to check using parameters like /objectDN, DN, and /NNC. What the test looks for. 1. Existence. The test checks if the critical objects exist on both domain controllers. 2. Consistency. It ensures that the objects are up to date on both domain controllers. Possible problems and solutions. If the test fails, it might be due to 1. Network issues. There might be network problems preventing DSM 01225 and DSM 2225 from communicating properly. Solution. Check network settings, DNS configurations, and ensure there are no firewalls blocking the necessary ports. 2. Replication configuration errors. There might be errors in the replication setup. Solution. Review the replication settings in the Active Directory sites and services. 3. Domain controller availability. If DSM 0225 is down, replication will fail. Solution. Ensure that both domain controllers are online and functioning. 4. Database corruption. Rarely, the AD database might be corrupted on one of the controllers. Solution. Check the health of the AD database and consider restoring from a backup if needed. 5. Insufficient permissions. Replication might fail if the necessary permissions are not set correctly. Solution. Verify and correct the replication permissions. Example outcome. Let's say the test results indicate that everything is working correctly. This means that any changes made on DSM 01225, like adding Alice's user account, are successfully replicated to DSM 0225. Both controllers have consistent and up-to-date information. The DCDIAG/test Objectsreplicated test in our matrix.internal domain example checks that important Active Directory objects are properly copied between the PDC DSM 01225 and ADC DSM 0225. This ensures that both domain controllers have the same data, which is crucial for maintaining the reliability and consistency of the directory services across the network. If the test finds any issues, the administrator can take steps to resolve them, ensuring the health of the AD environment.
So I can see here this example is very good. Let's ask the other AI tools, but first we need to ask Rika to explain, I needed to explain the same or the screenshot that we were talking about concerning the replication process. And after that, we will ask it to give us an example about the DCDIAG test objects replicated. So, for example, we go there and ask it to explain this one. Okay, I need to ask Perplexity if it have the same. Let's try to ask if we can upload a picture. Can I? If I need to apply a picture. Okay, I cannot upload images. Okay. Anyway, so we cannot do that. Let's see if there is an answer. Okay, until it finishes. Okay, here. Okay, he is not recognizing it as an. He is saying that a directory service called Active Directory, which is used in Microsoft Windows Network. Very simple explanation. It's a big address book that helps computers and users on a network find and communicate with each other. At the top, there are different types of clients. Outlook and legacy clients that can access the directory service. In the middle, there are interfaces like LDAP, REPL, MPI, and SAM. These are different roads or pathways that allow clients to connect to directory service. Very simple explanation. The NTDS.dll is the part of the Active Directory system agent, which acts like a helper that processes requests from the clients. The database layer is like a storage room where all information is kept. It uses something called extensible storage engine, which is like a special tool to organize and manage data. At the bottom, there is the Active Directory of the store, which is the actual big address book containing all information about the network. There is also arrow pointing to replication with domain controllers. This means that the information in the address book is copied to other servers. So if one server goes down, the others can take over. It's like having copies of the same address book in different places. So simple, very, very simple actually. Let's ask Rika to provide an example like ChatGPT 4o have done. Let's go there and ask it. Here you go, here is Rika, and ask it to provide an example. Not the answer that I was expected. Very, very simple answer, but not as detailed and as clear as the other one. So, as we can see here now, we have discussed the object replicated test, okay, in details. So I think this is can pass it quickly. So you will see here I'm trying to run the test, and let's see object replicated. And remember the primary domain controller is down, okay? It will check if the replication is done, okay, but it will not check, I think, the connection. Here is trying, as we see, it is succeeded, okay? So that this means that it will not check the connection with the primary domain controller. It only checks for the replication if it is done or not. And remember, the replication was done recently, so this will make the test pass. But what if the replication was done from 1 or 2 hours or 3 hours? Does this will make the test or the test will succeed? I think let me ask it a very, very straight question. Let's ask ChatGPT 4, what if I ran this test and okay, let's run this test after a successful replication was done and my PDC or replication partner was done. Will it succeed? And let's see, and I turned off my PDC. Let's see, no, it will not fail. So this is another, no, this is not correct. This is not correct at all because it is done. Okay, if you run test of successful completing application but then turn off, okay, no, you are not correct. This is not correct. I have my PDC VM suspended and the test succeed. Okay, let's see here. Here is saying that checks the previous completed objects have been replicated, goes offline, this state is retained. These tests focus on verifying the presence and timestamp replicated object rather than initializing a fresh. Okay, I need to verify the answer because I think he is bluffing me somehow, because he was having an answer and he changed it. Let's ask Perplexity for an answer like this one. Let's go and ask it. This will not likely fail. Not correct. I have my PDC VM suspended and the test succeed. So it's saying here it will only checks if the objects are being replicated, not the availability of the PDC. So it only checks if the objects are replicated, okay, not the connection between the domain controllers. Okay, anyway, but here I need to check something. He's saying that one thing here I do not clearly understand. He's saying that the specified domain controller has replicated all the required objects from other domain controllers in the domain. This is not the correct one, because if you go to the website of Microsoft, it says that this is saying that if you go further up, objects replicated, check the machine account of the DC and the directory service agents objects has been replicated. Okay, been replicated from other DCs or replicated to other DCs. So this is one thing I don't here clearly understand. So if he's saying that are replicated from other DCs, I don't think so. So he's saying check the machine account has been replicated, the machine account from other DCs. I don't know. But here he's saying the NTDS, this is something related to the setting of the domain controller itself, the NTDS setting of the domain controller. This is correct. Anyway, so this means that the test will succeed if the primary domain controller or the other domain controllers are down. It will only check if the objects are replicated successfully or the last replication was done successfully. Okay, so based on the last known successful status, let's ask the question, when it will check when it will fail the next time if I still have my PDC suspended. Okay, there is intervals for replication. Okay, schedule intervals to replicate between domain controllers. If DC remains suspended, will eventually detect his partner that it has been not be able to replicate. So there is schedule intervals for replication. Okay, so the replication will not be done in this scheduled intervals, and when we run the objects replicated, it will detect or it will see errors of the replication not done. Okay, so this depends on that. So for example, if there is a scheduled replicate and it failed, when we run this test, it will say that the last replication is unsuccessful. Okay, so let's tell him, you mean if the if a scheduled replication interval replication was missed or not done, the object or the next objects replicated test will fail as, okay, let's see. So here he is having some scenarios. I think this is a good scenario. He is giving us couple of days, or let me see the example that is giving me here. But first, let's see something here. Let's clarify this. Might fail when the domain controller is suspended. Schedule replication. Domain controllers are configured to replicate changes at regular intervals. Missing these schedules replication can lead to issues. Replication monitoring. The object replicated test check if the objects has been successfully replicated and up to date on domain controllers. So I think this will be based on the replication interval. Okay. Grace period. There are some tolerance for missed replication, but prolonged issues will be detected. So let's see what he's talking about here. If you suspend DC so and so and run object replicated test shortly after it may still succeed because DCSM0225, his partner, has a recently successful replication. That's correct, and this is what I have done in my lab. Missing schedule replication, short time, within a few replication cycles. Okay, this or the ADC will not immediately fail the test because it expects occasional minor delays. Okay, so this is in short terms. Medium terms, after multiple missed cycles, if the schedule replication cycles continue to be missed because the PDC remains suspended, the ADC will start logging replication errors. Long term, continued failure to replicate within a certain period, depending on the AD configuration and tombstone, we know all tombstone, this is the time Active Directory keeps deleted items within something like recycle bin. It will keep it for 60 to 180 days. If the replication was not done within this time, some problems will happen. Okay, this will cause the test to fail as the ADC will detect it hasn't communicated with PDC for too long. Okay, so let's see a replication schedule. He is saying that the replication will be done every 15 minutes as configured. This between domain controllers in different sites. So you have a site that contains some domain controllers, or another site in another location that contains some domain controllers. The replication should be done within 15 minutes. It can be delayed for 30 minutes. Okay. Event log. The ADC will log events replicating issues like so and so. If it will not be done for 3 hours, I remember the last answer. If it is delayed for 3 hours, then it will begin logging errors. Tombstone. If the request does not occur within the tombstone life, default 60 or 180, the domain controller identify lingering objects causing test failures. So let's see a scenario. Day 1, successful replication was done. PDC is suspended after that. Day 0, sorry. Then day 1, okay, day X, ADC attempts to replicate changes at scheduled intervals every 15 minutes. The attempts fail because DC is suspended. The other DC is suspended. Running DCDIAG test. Day 1, the test will still pass because ADC has recent replication data. Day 2, the test starts to detect missed replications as more scheduled replication fails. The ADC logs events indicating it hasn't been able to replicate beyond X days. So day 1 and day 2, the test will fail due to continuous missed replication cycles, replication errors logged, and potential logs like linear objects if the timestone life is so on. So he saying that you have only 1 or 2 days or 2 days, and then the third day or day 2 it will start to give some missed replications. The test will fail beyond X days, maybe 2 or 3 days. Not 2 or 3 days, okay, I think 2 or 3 days is saying that. Okay, day 1, day 2, okay, and day 3. Okay, or beyond day, for example, 60 days or whatsoever. It will miss so and so remains suspended. So you say the summary here. Well, BTC remains suspended and scheduled applications are missed repeatedly. Initially, there may be a grace period where the test can still pass, but continuous missed replications and accumulating errors in the event logs will lead to a test failure. The exact timing of the failure depends on the Active Directory replication schedule and configuration. So very, very good answer. Let's go and just see the other test. So as we can see here, the domain controller is down, but the test succeeded. So this is not correct. Here we will stop at this test. This is called outbound secure channels. This is very simple test. It will check if there is secure channels exist for all domain controllers in the domain to the domains that are specified. So anyway, this is to make sure that there is secure connection between all of the domain controllers. Okay, we will discuss this in the upcoming video. Hope this has been informative for you all, and thank you all for viewing. Thank you so much. We are stopping at minute 56:24.